The oral cavity is a cavity below the nasal cavity. It extends from the lips anteriorly to the palatoglossal fold posteriorly. The oral cavity is divided by the teeth into an outer vestibule and an inner oral cavity proper. The vestibule is bounded by the lips and cheeks externally and the gums and teeth internally. This slit-like space communicates with the outside through the oral fissure. When the jaw is closed, it communicates with the oral cavity proper behind the third molar tooth. In this space, there is an opening of the parotid duct which lies against the second upper molar tooth. The oral cavity proper is occupied mostly by the tongue. The tongue is a muscular organ, and the oral cavity proper is bounded superiorly by the hard palate and inferiorly by many muscles, including mylohyoid, among other muscles. The dorsal surface of the tongue contains many filiform papillae and some fungiform papillae. Towards the posterior end of the tongue, there are 7 to 12 circumvallate papillae in the shape of V. Posterior to the circumvallate papillae is a groove or sulcus called the terminal sulcus. At its tip is this opening called the foramen cecum. The posterior 1/3 of the tongue is roughened by the presence of many lymphoid tissues forming the lingual tonsils. The ventral surface of the tongue is attached to the floor of the mouth by the frenulum. This is the frenulum. On the ventral surface of the tongue, which is a smooth surface, lateral to the frenulum are the lingual artery, vein, and nerve. Those are found under this mucous membrane. In the floor of the mouth, lateral to the frenulum, is the opening of the submandibular and lingual salivary glands. The floor of the mouth is formed by many muscles, as we mentioned earlier. Those are the genoglossus muscle, the genohyoid muscle, the mylohyoid muscle, and the anterior belly of the digastric. Those, along with the mucous membrane, form the floor of the mouth. So, as we mentioned earlier, that the tongue is a muscular organ. So, in this last part of our video, we will talk about the muscles that form and move the tongue, the nerves that innervate those muscles, and the sensory innervation of the mucous membrane of the tongue. The muscles of the tongue are divided into intrinsic and extrinsic muscles. The intrinsic muscles are confined to the tongue and are divided into longitudinal fibers, transverse fibers, and vertical fibers. The intrinsic muscles of the tongue are innervated by the hypoglossal nerve, and those change the shape of the tongue. The extrinsic muscles of the tongue are the genioglossus muscle, the hyoglossus muscle, the palatoglossus muscle, and the styloglossus muscle, which is not seen on this view. All of these muscles are innervated by the hypoglossal nerve, except for the palatoglossus muscle, which is innervated by the pharyngeal plexus. The nerve supply of the dorsum of the tongue is as follows. The anterior two-thirds of the tongue is innervated by the lingual branch of the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. This nerve carries the general sensation, whereas the special senses that are the taste is carried with the coda tympani branch of the facial nerve. The posterior one-third, along with the small pre-sulcal area containing the circumvallate papillae, are innervated by the glossopharyngeal nerve that carries both the general sensation and the taste sensation. There is a small part below in the tongue that is innervated by the vagus nerve. This concludes our first station. The next station will be about the pharynx and larynx.